Hey there! Oh, there's a delay. I don't know what's going on. You won't have to look at me for much longer, but yeah, the sound is not going along with me moving. How frustrating. But I'm going to jump right into it because we have a lot to do. So, we've got the Peppermint Magazine free pattern, the Ruffle Sleeve top. I'm actually really excited to make this because when I looked a little bit closer, I realized that there's a facing, which means it's almost like there's like a lining in the shirt, which I just think makes the quality a lot better. So I do think that this is going to wind up being a two-parter. So I'll do as much of this project for our lesson today as I can, and then next week I think it will be the part 2. So I'll adjust that schedule. If you all haven't checked out the schedule, you can head over to hipstitch.co/lunchbreak. It's a really easy URL. So hipstitch.co/lunchbreak, and you can see the schedule there. And like I said, I will adjust. So I haven't cut anything out yet because I just wanted to show you how I'm laying it out. I've pretty much got all the pieces on about 2.5 yards. I've got the front piece that has a big bust dart. I've got the sleeve ruffle over here. I'm making it a little bit tilted so I can fit it in this extra piece over here. I've got the back. That's the sleeve ruffle. If I slide on down, you'll see it takes up a bit more fabric because of those facings, but it does make the quality of the shirt a bit better. So I've got the back facing and the front facing is right here. So I'm just gonna cut these out, and you'll notice all these pieces are on the fold because they're gonna open up into a full piece. So let's do some speed cutting. I know I always say to have you guys cut this out ahead of time, but I waited just in case someone doesn't know how. And if you're unsure about what size to make, remember, just head into, just download those instructions. And there's a chart on the 3rd page. So you put your measurements in. If you put your bust and your waist and your hips, that should be good. If you're sort of falling in between some sizes, just go with the bigger one, and then you can always size it down. Okay. The first, I'm gonna cut a little crazy here so I can split this up. The first instructions are going to be to sew. I'm gonna wait to cut that then. The dart. So I'm gonna actually just cut that out right now and show you how to mark the darts. There's also going to be some stay stitching around the neckline, and I'll explain what stay stitching is in case you don't know and why we do that. Alright, so here's my front. Just trim the bottom here. You could always use a rotary cutter. Just because of the way I'm set up for the live stream, rotary cutter doesn't work for me. And I'm more apt to use scissors anyway, just because that's what I'm more comfortable with. There's our little V-neck. Okay. So once we've cut that out, because it's on the folds, we're going to have the entire front piece. I don't want that to go very far. So that's my fabric. It's just like a thin, lightweight cotton, really great for the summer, since this is kind of a summery top. And I'm going to flip it to the wrong side and then get that pattern back. Now I'm going to do the dart for my size. So that's going to be the dot that's right there. You always want to make sure you're following for your size. I have a water soluble pen right here, and I'm going to make a dot in red right where the dot of my dart is. And then if I scoop that over, the end of my dart is here and here. So you can see I've got the ends marked and I've got my dot marked, and then I'm going to use a ruler or a straight edge. Here's a ruler to fully mark that dart. There. Oops. Make that show up a little better. And that is for the first side. Now, because I need to flip my pattern and it's not on the pattern, what I'm going to do is just write on the pattern where, and then I'll probably just click it through. So then I've got, that's where my dart is, that's where one end is, and that's where one end is. And then now I know where to mark it on the right side. So I just kind of move it away, make that line, move it back, and place a dot for the apex. And draw the lines for that one. All right. 1 and 2. Okay. So now that I have them drawn, hopefully you can see them okay. There we go. Zoomed in a little. You are going to fold as if there's a line right down the middle of the dart. I kind of grab the lines so they go right on top of each other. And if you have to scooch it around a little bit, you can, and then it should fold out to the dot. So once you've got that fold in the right place, stick a couple pins, and I always stick a pin at the end, and that way I know where the dart will go off the fabric. I'm gonna stick one in here, and then here's my other one. Same thing. I'm just going to pinch the fabric and fold it on the imaginary middle line so that the two lines of the dart wind up on top of each other. Pin that. And then one at the end where I'm going to sew off. So these instructions are actually pretty decent, so I'm going to try and follow them so you can follow along with me. So the first step is to do the stay stitching on the neckline and on the armholes. And this is something that you're just going to stitch a line of stitching about 1/4 inch from the edge of the fabric on the neck edge and then the armpits. And you do this so that, because they're kind of cut on the diagonal, you do it so it doesn't stretch out. By stitching there, it keeps the integrity of the neckline and the armholes. Yeah, and so that's why you're doing it about 1/4 inch from the edge, because when we sew, you know, whatever we're going to sew, the facing for the neckline, you want that line of stitching to be hidden, because we're going to use about 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then that way that will be hidden. And then the next step is to sew the darts, which we've prepared. Awesome. Then we're going to stay stitch on the back pieces. Same thing. We're going to stay stitch around the neckline and around the armpit. Monty has decided to join us. All right, so let's try sewing. Oh, look! I have a sewing machine camera today. How exciting. And I'm just going to change this bobbin to light blue, because it's what I have handy, and it doesn't need to be hot pink. And my top thread is like a really light pink, so just as long as it's light in color. Okay. First things first. I'm going to stay stitch the neck edge. Rock. And I like to stay stitch from the ends out, so that it meets in the middle. And stay stitch on the armhole. Stay stitch on this armhole, and the same thing. I go in the same direction, even though it's sort of awkward to sew. I do want to start at the top. And work my way down. Alright, so now I can sew my darts. And I'm going to start from the outside and work my way in, sewing right on the dart line. And on these, I do want to backstitch. And as you get closer to the apex of the dart, you're going to bring your stitch length down. I don't know if you can see. It's 3.0 right now, so I'm going to sew to the end and just start to bring that down and make it, and then you don't have to do a back stitch. So let's bring that back up to 3. Back stitch at the beginning. Tiny stitch length at the end. And move that back so I don't forget. Okay. So back to the overhead where the cat is sitting. I'm just going to move you for a minute, Monty. And we've got our darts. So I've got a dart here and I've got a dart here. Now I'm going to stay stitch the back, but I just want to finish cutting the back. I didn't do that. And I've got a ruffle here too that I need to cut. There we go, there's the back. Just like the front, it's on the fold. Alright, we've got some people watching live. If you're watching live and you want to say hi in the chat. Otherwise, you're probably watching the video. In case you're watching the video and you want to watch it live, I do this every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's always a free pattern that I find from one of the pattern companies. There's so many free patterns out there now for clothing, especially. I mean, there's a million bags and aprons and things like that, but I keep finding more and more clothing patterns that are really quite good. So that's what I sew in the lunchtime live stream. So there's my back. Cut on the fold. So we open it up and there it is. We don't have any darts in the back because our backs, for the most part, are flat. But we do want to do the stay stitching. So again, I'm going to start at the top, meet in the middle, and then same thing with the armholes. I'm going to start at the top and down here on both sides. Excuse me, Monty. We've got the right armhole, quarter-inch seam allowance, the left armhole. Let's back this up so you can see a little bit more. Noreen's here. Hi, Noreen. My biggest supporter. I'm glad you're here. And hopefully I get to see you in real life very soon. All right. Let me go back to... Okay. Back to sewing. Stay stitching the neck, top to the middle. I know where the middle is because I can actually see there's a crease. So I'm going to stop there. And then move it out of the way. And stay stitched. Okay. Next step is to put the front and the backs together. Again, Monty, can you just scooch maybe a little bit this way? How about that? I have a big window right in front of this table, and so he gets on this table and looks out the window at the birds and anything else he can spot. So that's why he loves to be here. Okay, front and back. Let me see if I can go up a little bit so you can see a bit more. Oh, I'm moving on to. So there's the shoulder seams on the back, and then I'm going to put the shoulder seams on the front together with it. And you'll notice right sides are facing each other. Line up that shoulder seam. It seems my front is slightly wider than my back. It's fine. I'm just going to center it and have a little bit overhanging. I'm not too worried about it. It will go away when I sew the facing. And then same thing over here. 1, 2. Just seems a lot wider. 3. And I'm going to check the pattern. Step 4 is what we're on. And if you want, you can press the seam allowances open. That's definitely a great idea. I am not going to be doing that for this, just because, you know, we're in the interest of getting through as much as we can of this project without rushing. And then step 5 is going to be sewing the side seam. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to, while I'm here pinning, I may as well line up the side seam as well. And again, if you are not perfectly aligned at the bottom, that is a-okay. You can fix that when you hem it. I think my dart was slightly bigger than it should have been, and so it wound up making the front slightly smaller, but that's okay. That's, you know, one of the things that I find to be really important when I'm teaching sewing is that it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, it's way more fun if you're just, you know, for the most part doing it correctly, but knowing that, you know, we don't have to take it super seriously. Like, it's not so short down here that it's going to make a difference in the length of your shirt. It's going to be fine. So that's definitely how I like to teach, especially when I'm teaching beginners. You know, obviously as we get more advanced, you want to be a little bit more stringent with your sewing rules. But for now, especially for this, yeah, it's fine. All right, so then I'm going to scooch everything over. The dart actually looks a lot better on this side. And then look, oop, the length is a lot better. So I'm going to pin that. You know what I might do, because I can, is I actually might redo the dart over here just to get it better on the line so it does line up down here. So this is a case where I think I am going to fix it. But for the sake of this live stream, I'm going to sew this side, and then I will show you the sleeve on the correct side, and I'll fix the other side later. And just for clarification, all I'm going to end up doing is taking the stitching out of my dart and re-sew that to make sure I hit the line a little bit better on my dart. I think when I'm doing these live streams, I'm thinking about a lot of things. Well, who am I kidding? I could have done that anytime I was sewing. So yeah, so that's an easy fix. And then the length down here will match a little bit better. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to sew shoulder seam, and then I'm going to sew just this side, and then that will give me an armhole so I can demonstrate how to do the sleeve on this side as well. All right, so let's go do that. Switch over to the sewing machine cam. And I'll start with the shoulder. And my machine, I'm just doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance, which means I'm just lining up the presser foot with the edge of the fabric. Got my other one, other shoulder seam. And this is the side where I'm going to fix the dart. So I'm going to sew this one. Now, I like to sew my side seams from the top down, which means I could sew it like this and have all this fabric here, or I could flip it over, which is what I'm going to do. And I just have to be really careful about removing my pins that are on the other side. And you've got this giant dart that you have. Make sure that the dart is facing down. The dart is going to be headed to the bottom. And then I'm still aware of where my pins are on the other side. Taking those out as I go. All right, great. So now I've got my shoulder seams and my side seam, which means I have this nice armhole in which we're going to put a sleeve. I'm going to go to step 6 of the instructions. I think they're asking you to do a French seam. We're not going to follow that. We're just doing regular seams. Okay, so then the following step is putting the facings together. I'll talk about French seams another time. They end up complicating things a little bit, but they're great because then it gets rid of your raw edges inside. But again, this is a beginner class. We're not going to worry about our raw edges if you want to zigzag over them, or you could grab some pinking shears. Actually, what do I do? Why don't I do that? Grab my pinking shears. And these are great for finishing the edges. Pinking shears are the ones that have the zigzag blade, and you can cut your seam allowances in a fabric that frays, and it will fray less. Oh, thanks, Monty. He literally just swept it off with his tail. Okay, so that's a great thing to do with seam allowances if you're not doing a fringe seam. I am going to get my front and back facing, and we're going to do basically the same thing we did to the front and back. We're going to sew the shoulder seams, and we're going to sew the side seams. So let me grab those. I will put this aside, my ruler aside. And here are the facings. Okay. So here's my back facing. Finish cutting that. And here is my front facing. So I'm going to unpin both of these. Oops, I forgot to cut move that out of the way. Cut my V-neck. So you can see it just mimics the shape of the shirt, but it doesn't go all the way down. It's just basically for the top. There we go. I'm going to put the front facing face up, and I'm going to put the back facing face down onto it. Actually, I'm going to switch so you can see both. There's my back facing face up, my front facing face down, getting the shoulder seams together just like we did with the front and back of the shirt, matching my shoulder seams. And while I'm pinning, might as well pin this. And then over on this side. Actually really kind of excited. I'm not always excited about these free patterns, but this one is great. And you know what? It does make me want to go onto the In the Folds website and check out what other patterns they have, because I really like, you know, when they have good instructions and you can kind of sample them for free. I really do think that it pays off for the pattern company, because you can kind of test it out, try it out. before you commit to buying it. So this is kind of a cool way to test out different pattern companies. There are a lot of pattern companies out there now. Okay, quick recap. Sewing here, and here. Go to the sewing machine camera. And I'll start with the shoulder. Okay, and then same thing on the sides. I'm starting at the top and sewing down. And on the other side, I will flip, and my pins are still visible. Isn't that good? Alright, we got 20 minutes left. Buzzing along here. Okay, and there's my facing. It's almost like a little crop top, a very cropped top. Okay, so I'm going to consult my instructions so you all will have them at home if you need them. Okay. So since this is sort of our half lining inside, we don't want to leave this edge a raw edge. So we're going to turn it up about 1/4 inch. And I could pin it, and if you're really comfortable, more comfortable using a pins to make sure that's all pinned before you sew it, go for it. I'm going to bring it over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to fold and sew as I go. Okay, I'm reading all of the chat stuff over here. Yeah. Peppermint Magazine, as Rachel mentioned, it's a sewing magazine out of the UK, which has tons of free patterns. And so a lot of the ones that I'm doing for the Lunchtime live stream were actually from the Peppermint Magazine website. So if you're over there, you can get the link from the Hipstitch website, and then while you're there, I think all of the patterns are free on the Peppermint Magazine, and you can make a donation. So I don't really know how it works, but since they are offering so much free content, it's probably a nice thing to give them a little donation. I should probably do that too. I have not yet. All right. Sewing project. Facing. I'm folding it over, as mentioned, about 1/4 inch. And this does not have to be super accurate as far as how much you're folding over, because it's on the inside. It's just so that the edge doesn't wind up raw on the inside. So I'm just going to sew along and fold as I go. And it is curved, so it can be tricky, But if you get some bumps along the way, I wouldn't even worry about it. You know what I'm going to do? As I have my pinking shears right here, I've got a seam allowance on my side seam right there, so I'm going to do that. Not at what I was sewing. Sewed right off the fabric. Pinking shears, I did the other side. Be getting to where I started pretty soon. There we go. And then finish stitching wherever you started. I just run it over, cut that, and bring it over to Monty's throne. All right. We've got, I'm sure Noreen is really enjoying that I have the cat right here. Oh my goodness. You are so fresh, cat. All right. So I'm going to turn my shirt right side out, okay? And I can move on to this step because I am going to correct this over here, but we're just going to work on the neck right now, so I can move on to that and still leave the side unsewn. Thank you for all your help, Monty. It's really appreciated. Okay, so turning it right side out, the facing, I'm gonna, yep, there we go. I'm going to put that on top of the shirt, and we're gonna line up that V-neck edge. Okay, if that makes any sense. That V-neck is lining up perfectly between the facing and the shirt, and as it does, I am going to pin it. Let's see if I can show that a little better. There we go. I suppose that's a little better. In case you need a better visual of that, it's this step, so you can see the stitching around the neck and the pins. And that's what I'm doing, is I've put the facing, which is inside out, it's shown here as kind of grayish green, together with the shirt. The white side is showing you the right side. Okay? And that's what I'm pinning together. All the way around. start and do another pin over here on the shoulder seam. Put that together. Pin down to the front. And then all the way around the back. Grab a few more pins. There. Okay. So that's the entire head hole, neck hole, right? And that is the next thing that I'm going to sew. Now, keep in mind, you stay stitched the neck edge of the shirt at 1/4 inch. So you've got to make sure that when you're sewing this, it's larger than 1/4 inch. So do a 1/2 inch. But also just pay attention to the stitching. I'm going to be able to see where that stitching is. So I'm going to know to sew to the left of that stitching. So then you won't see it when we turn it right side out. All right. So I want to remove my free arm for this because I'm actually just going to put... Am I going to put it now? Maybe I'm not going to put it actually. I'm going to place it on like this. So it's up to you. You could put the whole neck edge onto the machine, but maybe because I can see my stay stitching this way, I'm actually going to leave it like this. And with the head I'll start sewing that together. Where's my empty pincushion? Here it is. I'll fill that. And every time you kind of stop and have to adjust, make sure your needle is down, all the way down, and then it won't move around on you. Down. And just make sure everything stays flat. There's no bumps in what you're sewing. That LED light on the machine kind of makes a crazy glare on here. It's nice to have. It's nice and bright, but in the video it seems a little weird. So I'm getting to that front of V-neck, and again, I'm just making sure that everything is staying flat as I go. And because it's a V-neck, what I like to do is, get that glare to go away, is kind of have the V-neck stay in that V position. Needle down, pivot at the bottom of the V-neck, and then continue up. Just needle down. Doing a live stream. Okay. And back to where I started. All right. Pulling that off. Now this is always like my favorite part, because we get to turn it right side out. Oh, no, Monty just decided to go do something else. Anyway, we get to turn the